I'm here to talk about mixed reality for brands and what brands can do for customers using AR, XR, and a little bit of VR. Um, so my name is Jason Yim. I'm the CEO of Trigger. We're the mixed reality agency. We are 40 people located in Los Angeles. This is just to give you a quick splash of some of our key clients and key projects from the past few months. We are 100% focused on XR. So for the past 3 years, 100% of our development has been in XR, most of it in augmented reality, and some of it in VR as well. And one thing I want to show, if this is one of the main takeaways, is that when you walk away from this session, that XR is not just about Facebook lenses and Pokemon Go. There's a lot to be done across many different industries, many different use cases, and many different technologies being pulled into that mix. So, a little bit about myself. I was born in Singapore. I grew up in Hong Kong. I moved to the US for high school and then went to UCLA. And I started Trigger in 2005. Prior to Trigger, I had another agency called Media Revolution. Our main investor was Hans Zimmer, who was the big film composer. So we started very much off as a film marketing agency, digital film marketing agency. So we did a lot of web design, we did apps, we did tablet apps and stuff like that. If you guys were old school guys, we were a big Macromedia Flash and Shockwave house. So I think at one point we had 26 Macromedia sites of the day. So I think that was super exciting for us. But the interesting thing about being on the film marketing side was this innovation cycle, right? Like we work with every single studio. Every weekend is a new movie release, and as soon as you've launched something for a studio, they'd want to see something different for the next the next movie. And that taught us to try to look for new technology and new ideas all the time. We built a studio in Shanghai that was 3D artists, game developers, and 2D artists to support the kind of Flash work. And that was a real great step for us that led right into mixed reality, into AR. So our first AR project was in 2009. Here it is for Sony. It's for District 9. Super simple. It's working off a webcam, but we fell in love with the tech. This is, it's like low-res graphics and stuff, but this idea of bringing a film character, a spaceship or whatever into your room was super exciting for us. And since then, we built up 175,000 hours of XR development across all these different industries, across many, many use cases. And a large part of that for us was because of our tech relationships that were supporting this. So Trigger basically provides the experiential and creative layer on top of the core AR technology. So we work with these tech partners. Sometimes we'll play with stuff a year in advance of other developers. We're the first to introduce it. For instance, for Snap, we were the first guys to create Snap lenses outside of Snap's internal team. They were using us as the guinea pig for the Lens Studio as that was being developed. For Vuforia, which was, and they're out there in the expo, which is exciting. We've been working with them since they were in R&D at Qualcomm. Way back in the day when they were still in R&D, we were the creative group that they brought in to launch new features. So the first time there was text reco, object reco, SLAM, cloud recognition were all projects that we got to collaborate with them on. And I think that's really important, especially in this space in XR, because of the fact that technology is changing on a daily basis. So every week we are looking at, we'll exposed to new hardware or new platforms or new ways to deliver content. So being able to handle the creative side and the technical side is hugely important in XR. A little look at our team. So everybody highlighted on that side are Unity devs. So there's 11 Unity guys, plus we have 2 3D guys that are kind of responsible for integration into Unity, so they know Unity as well. But you'll see it's a large percentage of our team. And I think this is super important when we look at some of the work. Again, a lot on the client side, they look at us as a creative shop, but in fact, the technical team is the largest individual team in our company. So for brands, like who is using XR right now? So Deloitte came out with a report recently that said 88% of medium-sized companies or something random like that are already using XR. Again, we started with entertainment, but we quickly moved into many, many other industries. Today, we'll talk about sports. We'll talk about retail environment. There's other stuff on the hospitality side we've done as well. And then automotive is big for us. So as an example, I think in an XR studio, one thing that's interesting is how many different things that you'll get to work on as a developer. It's not just working on one game for years at a time or in a single industry. For us, our average development cycle is anywhere from 4 months to 6 to 8 months, and some longer projects can be a year and a half. But in that time, you might be working on a big movie, going on to a big sports brand, to consumer products. So there's a lot of variety in that mix. And half of our projects are actually with the innovation groups within those companies. So half marketing, half innovation. I am not a stat guy, but I thought some of this would be interesting and kind of frame our discussion. So on the general side, the XR market size will grow to 210 billion. I don't know if this is an accurate number at all. It's a huge growth. It's like 8x in a year. But even if that's not the exact number, we are definitely feeling that it is, the tide is rising, and a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's a great time to actually enter the industry because of that. On the social side, this is particularly interesting. Like, as a brand, if you want to deliver XR to your consumer, Snap has 94% penetration rate for that target age group. If you add Facebook and Instagram, like that covers, it's almost ubiquitous that you have some sort of delivery vehicle for XR to your consumer, and I think that should be super important for brands. The other thing is that's supportive is this idea that when you look at social trends, that consumers actually follow brands. So they are actually, and they follow brands more than they follow actors, athletes, musicians, which is super crazy. But I think that speaks to them wanting to be informed buyers and also having loyalty to the brand itself and the products that they consume. So I think that ties into XR. Like you will have a customer that wants this content as long as you can deliver it to them. For online shopping, this is kind of speaking to efficacy of XR. So I think House and I think IKEA has similar types of numbers. Like there's a 11x improvement or a higher probability of someone buying a product if they've kind of previewed it in AR versus just looking at a 2D photo. And that's a huge number. And that same sort of results are happening on the enterprise side as well. So 70% higher scores, cutting training time by 40%, things like that. Like we're hearing that all across the enterprise training side. So XR is not only deliverable to the consumer and can be targeted to the consumer, but it's effective. And then the final stat, like 71% would rather shop at a retailer with some AR functions. I think the important part of this is that it's building this consumer expectation. Once you have the behavior, and once that behavior is proven to be useful for consumer, then they're going to grow to want it more, and they're going to grow to expect it. So as a brand, when you first go in, when you want to do XR, like the first choice you have to do is like, what is the platform? How are you going to deliver your content? And each platform has its pros and cons, of course. So first off, social AR, again, Snap, Facebook, Instagram, they are, it's great to kind of rapidly target a consumer. We see this as kind of lower hanging fruit. A lot of new brands or new marketing agencies are coming through this side. It's the smaller budget, smaller development time, works within their normal advertising cycle, and it hits the audience. But the downside is it's single-use AR. You're doing something that makes a lot of noise. They might be engaged, but like other kind of social media, it comes and goes very quickly. So you have to keep feeding that beast with more content. Web AR, which has been kind of around for the past year or so, is great. You don't need an app. You actually are activating AR through the mobile browser itself. So it's frictionless. No one has to download anything. As soon as they can get to a URL, they can see the AR experience. The downside of it is that there's a huge kind of communication lift necessary to actually activate it. Someone that sees a QR code at a store does not expect to see an AR experience come out of that QR code. So until you have, until either a consumer is familiar with that and expecting that, then the communication lift can go down. Before then, you have to have a lot of instructions and stuff to tell them what to expect, and then deliver that content. App-based AR, either in this case, you can do a full app, or what we recommend a lot is to do an AR module to embed and install into an existing app with an install base. That's great because it could be full-featured. We'll show you examples where it's tying into all this other kind of technology, so it can be a very powerful app. And it's more for a brand that wants repeat utility and a reason for a consumer to use that same app and same feature over many products over a long period of time. The downside is you need to get that consumer to download the app in the first place. I was at another conference where someone was speaking, and they brought up that the kind of average new app install for a consumer is per month is 0. So that can be a very difficult lift, I think. And then you get to head-mounted devices. So this is kind of a smaller niche for us now. We are running the gambit from Bose AR is also out here at the expo. So the first two are more consumer-facing. Bose allows you to do audio AR. Unreal and of course Magic Leap are doing visual-based AR. Those are more kind of consumer platforms. And then finally there's HoloLens 2 on the enterprise side. It's great that they are hands-free, and I feel like that is, as everyone is saying, is the promise of the future, where it's this kind of spatial web. Everything you look at will have a digital layer on top of it. But the technology is, the whole platform is nascent. And that's not only the technology, the underlying technology, but there's also the content. So if I'm wearing AR glasses, but there's very little spotty amounts of content, it's only appearing at a game, at a theme park, or at a movie theater. Why is that pair of glasses useful everywhere else? So that's a big problem. The other thing is that's nascent is the UX. Just understanding how a consumer is going to use the different features in the different apps, and finding best practices, that takes time. So right now, if I do happen to download an app, I know that if I swipe or click, I can get through stuff, and I can use every single app with those kind of basic controls. Something like a head-mounted device, when you load up a new experience, it could be voice command, it could be gesture control, you could be controlling it with another device, you could be controlling it with your iPhone as well, it could be tracking your gaze. There's so many different things in terms of UX that if there is that much variety and there's no best practices, then the consumer, you're always spending a lot of time onboarding every new consumer on every single experience. So that will take time. And then location-based is basically, it's great because it's device-free. You walk into a store, you walk into a museum, and you have this amazing experience. You didn't have to bring a consumer didn't have to bring anything along, but the problem is like it's limited to that location. So unless you're going to replicate that across all your stores and you have enough stores, it's hard to scale. And then what are the kind of experiences that you can do in XR? Like again, I wanted to show a variety that goes from things that I feel are kind of similar to what you can do with traditional media, things that are slightly different, and then ultimately you want to get to things that are unique or at least better in XR versus anything else. So of course on the similar side, like you can pop up product info, that can be videos, you can do couponing, and shopping here is representing like the actual transaction, you can buy from it. Where it starts getting different is things like, are there more powerful tools? Are you changing play? So we've been working with Lego for 6 years now, and we also work with Mattel. Is there stuff that you can do when bringing a toy to life that you couldn't have done before? But it's still part of like the natural play of the toy. And then things that are better. So I think we're definitely seeing numbers on the training side, and of course, if you think about try-on and 3D placement, like we've been making purchase decisions off of like photography since 1880 or something like that. Actually, not photography. That was illustrations at first when it was printed catalogs, and then it moved on to photography. And now we can actually try on the glasses in AR, or try on makeup, or try on the product, and you can actually place furniture in your room. That I think is a huge shift, and I think you can't do that with any other kind of medium. You can't do that with any other kind of technology. So that makes it a unique kind of benefit of using XR. And then how do brands kind of measure success? So in general terms, kind of starting with kind of least valuable would be just impressions, right? So we have worked on campaigns that have billions of media impressions worldwide. Just for the AR campaign. The actual performance and app stats could be things that like how many downloads did you have, what were average session times, how long did they look at each AR experience. You can track things down to the detail, like what was their percentage completion of actually launching AR, how long did it take them to find a clear spot to do something, when did they quit the app, all that sort of stuff. But all those stats hopefully are pushing towards, for a brand, a better understanding of their customer. Like what is a better understanding of their user behavior, a better understanding of their preferences, and then ultimately moving towards either bigger sales numbers or other types of initial results that you want, or key results that you want. That could be kind of playtime, it could be efficacy in training, test scores, and stuff like that. And then before we get into the case studies, I do want to mention kind of our biggest challenges. I mean, there's lots of challenges, but these are the 4 kind of consistent ones that we run into on every single project. A lot of what we do and a lot of projects in the XR space is pure innovation. It is inventing. Like we are doing things that have never done before. Until we built that app, it had never existed. Not only the app itself and the specific content, but even the user experience or putting those technologies together hadn't been done before. So you need time to invent. You need time to get stuff wrong. You need time to try things. You need time to test things. Finding the fun. This is something that we learned from Lego. Again, we worked with Lego for 6.5 years now. We actually had an office in Aarhus before. Our lead concept guy comes from Lego. He was 10 years at Lego. I moved to close to Berlin for 3 months with my family to embed within the XR team at Lego. Finding the fun, even for a company like Lego, who of course are the #1 toy company, like they take that seriously. They don't go, we know kids, we know toys, this one's going to be a hit. They have this super strict process where they design, test, prototype, and the prototyping is done in Denmark and in the US and the UK and Germany and China. like finding the fun and finding what works is not guaranteed and takes a lot of effort and kind of dedication. The next thing is the 3D pipeline. So this is actually quite complicated, especially when you are working with many industries. So on one project, we might be working with film res content from Pixar that has all this custom, shaders and things like that. And then right next to them, someone is working on an auto project on a production CAD file that you can literally build a car out of. So how do you get all of that stuff to work down on a mobile phone is super challenging. And then the final piece that as developers you don't tend to worry about so much is deployment. You guys are all heads down trying to build the app, making it as robust as possible, best experience as possible. But the biggest piece of friction when it actually goes out to the world is on the deployment side. Was the signage done right? Did they do enough marketing behind the app? Is there enough floor space at the location of the event for the AR to trigger? Did they train the sales staff enough, or the ambassadors enough to help with the app? So we are seeing, especially as the projects get more complicated and in some ways more exciting, the deployment part is the most nerve-wracking part for us. Like, we've spent thousands of hours building something, and we have to work really closely with our brand partners and the client to make sure that it's deployed effectively at the end. So some case studies. Wanted to go into kind of different industries that are focused for us. So first one is entertainment. On the left here, this is for Nickelodeon, probably our most successful lens or effect for Instagram. So I think it's over 10 million in terms of actual captures or effects created, and then another further X number of tens of millions of impressions just from sharing through the social channel. But one key thing that we learned from this is that, especially in social and for XR, you need to feature the user. Like when we do lenses that are world lenses that are just showing the product of the content versus something that turns the camera around and the person can show themselves or their friends, the difference is exponential. You either do both or you just do the face side. Everything else besides that is developed in Unity. So the next one is for Toy Story. So this project over the summer, it was taking 9 characters, bringing them to life from the Toy Story brand. You could take photos with them, do video. But the interesting approach, we've done a lot of kind of like photo sharing type of character projects before, but for this one, the strategy was to partner with Regal Cinema. So Regal Cinema is a big film chain in the US, has an install base for their app of over 9 million users. So Disney took their content and basically embedded it within that Regal Cinema app. And then we further kind of reinforced that partnership by having AR content that launched off of movie posters that are found inside the Regal Cinemas themselves. So that's critical. And now Disney can also take that content and put it into other apps that they feel would make sense with that partnership. The one in the kind of middle is for Walking Dead Season 8. This official app was basically, would unlock, I think it was 15 total walkers over the entire season. But the brand kind of connection to it was that you could unlock the walkers by listening as you're watching the show. The app would actually listen to the TV commercial, and when a Mountain Dew commercial played, it would unlock the walker from that show. Or you could actually scan the Mountain Dew product itself and packaging and unlock more walkers. So again, we're trying to tie into not only the digital content itself, but also television commercials and physical product in physical retail stores. And then the last one on the far right is, we call it Landmark AR. It was for Star Wars, The Last Jedi. I think it was 10 global landmarks around the world. Basically, during Force Friday, on one weekend, when you were within a mile and a half of those global landmarks, you could look up and you could actually see a life-size Star Destroyer over those landmarks. And now Snap is doing this kind of a landmark feature in their platform as well. So again, some different approaches for as an entertainment brand, how to reach your consumer. This is for the dev guys out there. This is just a little look into the Unity project for Spidey itself. It's the official Spidey app. So for Homecoming, it had only the Spidey suit. We updated and rebuilt everything for Far From Home. So of course we added new characters. You can see all of course, the particle effects that you can do now. That's a big improvement. We're trying to come up with, we're mixing kind of best practices from iOS and Android for placement and scaling. And the app itself is not only AR, it also has a bunch of other type of content. So you can actually get into Peter Parker's phone. You can access his voicemails, his videos. You can pull in his photos. And a lot of this is actually pulled remotely from the web as well. So that way we don't actually have to update the app. But with something that has that much type of content, memory management is huge for us. So. Another kind of vertical to focus on is retail. So on the left we have transitions. This is a snap lens. It's a try-on system. It's doing a background replace as well. So you can place yourself outdoors at a cafe. You could be inside, and then you can also try all the different lenses on your glasses. The next one is for Adidas. It's for augmenting a mural that they have at one of their flagship stores. So again, this is if a brand is already doing stuff at retail, they already have collateral out there, using AR to enhance that or add additional content or value on top is powerful. The third one is for Lego. This is a recent launch. We actually did the kind of prototype work for this new toy product that they have, which is the hidden side, where you have AR ghosts around a product. We're also doing the Web AR retail launch for it. So a consumer can go into the store, you'll see QR codes, you scan them, and when you scan those QR codes, it will actually unlock an AR experience inside the store where you get to hunt and catch those ghosts. So previews what the gameplay is going to be when you actually buy the set. And we are also using different QR codes for different retail partners, in-magazine, and all that sort of stuff to actually track the user behavior and performance over all those different touch points. And then the final one on the right is with Nike. This was done in Shanghai. We did, at this sporting event, we basically, when you scan the physical shoe, it gets replaced by a 3D digital shoe, and you can actually look inside, X-ray view, and see how the technology works underneath. This is ambassador-driven, so this is another approach that brands can do, where they can, instead of creating an app that's for in the App Store for download, which again is a huge lift, they can do something at retail with ambassadors, with dedicated devices to walk people through it. On the automotive side, automotive is big for us for many reasons. One is like the amount of innovation that happens there. On the left, there's this AR design and evaluation tool that we've co-created with Honda. We can't show a lot of the cars that they have because they're not public. It's for their advanced design group. But it started as a HoloLens project, and this kind of talks to the innovation and changes on the hardware side too. It started as a HoloLens project, moved on to Windows mixed reality, so that's a backpack solution with headset and external Z cameras. And then there was an iOS, a ARKit solution, and then the final version of it is done in Magic Leap. It allows you to compare vehicles, and for Honda or for other car companies, they ideally want to compare those vehicles against real, actual competitor vehicles in a large environment. So the AR has to be able to stand up to that quality. has all the kind of data and measurements right there, and you can view the interior and see specs and stuff. So again, the power of AR as a tool. The next one in the middle is for Nissan, partnership with Star Wars and Lucasfilm. You would go into a Nissan dealership, it will transform the entire car into a Star Wars vehicle, and all the characters would come out and explain the safety features. So we had 70% retention almost on the safety features going through this experience, which is a huge number, because if you think about, all these details like pedestrian radar, all that sort of stuff, normally is being told through a print brochure or a quick video. Like those retention rates there are much lower than something like 70%. The next one is in-car VR for Honda Innovation. So this is driving through Vegas. It was Vive in the back seat of the car. As you're driving through the town, it was like one-to-one match to the physical location. But when you're looking at VR, let's say you drive past a restaurant and you look, you'd actually see photos from the restaurant. You would see their rating. You would see their customer testimonials. Obviously, the final consumer-facing solution for this is not VR in the backseat of a car. They're commercializing this right now, and it's more of a kind of point-based system. It's just using your mobile device. But the interesting idea from this was there are things that are working in the online world, right? Like we buy our when we're buying something online, we are looking at ratings. When we pick a restaurant, we are looking at the food photos. We're looking at customer comments. Like all that can now be brought back to the physical world because of its effectiveness in the online world. And then the last piece is on the right-hand side, again, to kind of show what else can be done in Unity in this space. We work a lot with the Advanced Design Group. So these are future concept vehicles. These are all confidential, so we don't get to show any of the work there, but we are trying to show designs. We're working on designs that are 2030 and beyond. We're moving on to the fourth year. So there's HMI visualization on HoloLens. We're doing full 3D projection for environmental storytelling, and then room scale VR. So not only can you see the car, but you can actually enter what is the future ecosystem where these cars will exist in. And all of this is developed in Unity. Another thing that I think XR can really change is location-based experiences. So the project on the left is Royal Caribbean. This is for their flagship cruise ship. It's a $2 billion ship. Basically, if you're a passenger on the ship, you get this AR tour. There's beacons throughout the ship. I think there's 14 stations. So as you walk through, this is the CEO, but different crew members, different performers will actually appear in that space and tell you about that location. So we volumetrically captured everyone at MetaStage, which is one of the Microsoft studios. So the CEO on the left is full 3D. You can walk around them, get up close and personal, and then of course the ship that he's introducing there is full 3D and detailed as well. The middle one is for the Black Eyed Peas for their European concert. On this project, we were actually, for 3 songs during the concert, AR content would appear above the stage. The app was actually listening to the bass track that's being played under all the live performance and syncing to that bass track. Average usage was about 30 to 50% of the crowd. And I think this is another key idea, is that we are not trying to change user behavior, right? Like when you go to a concert, everyone has their phone out. We know that's already happening in a concert. We're just trying to take advantage of that and control some of that. So the band would push people to download the app, and then during those songs would actively ask, have a call to action for them to pull out the app and actually use it in that way. So I think very successful adoption considering. And then the last one on the right is the fish designer. So this is at the Lego Museum, Lego House in Billund. So pretty close by if you guys want to go take a look, 3 hours drive. But this experience is, it's the highest performing digital experience, 30 to 40 minutes average session time. Kids can go and build the fish with bricks, put it into a scanner, and the fish comes to life. So here's, again, a view into the Unity project. Oh, somehow stopped. So these fish are procedurally built from the physical scan by individual bricks. You'll see that in the actual kind of polished game view, these are on 6 massive screens or screen arrays in the museum. There's light rays through the water. There's projection on the floors. Everything is AO. All the fish move randomly based off of a behavior determined by kind of like their expression that the user chose. And then there are big events that happen in the tank where suddenly we have to gather all the fish together, put them onto more of a controlled path where that big event happens, and then we release the fish back to random nature after that. I think total bricks in scene, it's like 300,000 bricks to actually make all the characters and the environment. And then to finish with sports, sports is a really interesting area for us because there is this avid fan base. There is this second screen sort of idea where not everyone can actually go to the game, so they want to be there. So on the left, we have on Snap a geofence experience where it only appears at the stadium and during the game time and presents the 2 teams that are actually playing. The next one is also Snap, but it's a 3D portal for FC Barcelona. You can actually go into the stadium, walk in. It's 1-to-1. We built the stadium under 4 megabytes in 3D. So if you're on a beach or whatever, you can actually walk to the stands and at the edge of the field. The next one is similar portal idea, but this is live 360 video. So it's for the NBA. We also did it for the PGA. So if you imagine a second screen experience where you're watching the game, you're watching the finals, you can actually plant a door in AR and walk through that door. And when you walk through that door, it takes you to courtside. Or for the PGA, it took you to the tee where all the players were teeing off. And then the final one on the right is for NHL. We're really excited about this idea. I don't know if you guys are big hockey fans, but basically baseball has a ton of stats. It has 100 years of stats. With NHL and hockey, there's not a lot of stats just because the game is so fast. But this year in January at CES, it was the first time they tracked real telemetry from an actual game. So all the players had chips on their uniforms, and the puck itself had a positional chip as well. So the chips were being updated with information 2,000 times a second. This was all being sent up to Intel servers. Intel servers were parsing that and then kind of sending that to different partners. We were the AR partner. And what we're trying to do is, if you imagine this as a second screen experience, you could be watching the game either at the event itself or at home on TV, and you could get a instant or live replay, a stat replay of the actual play on the ice. The great thing about this is that you can actually then track your favorite player and see what their average speed is, what their shot speed was, is their average speed kind of going down over time, etc. The other interesting piece about this is, so we have all the live feed of data on the left. It's also synced with the play-by-play from a separate feed as well. But the interesting thing was there was interest both from the consumer side for this and commercializing this, especially for betting is going to be big for the NHL, gambling. But the other piece was from team management side. As a manager of a team, you can now kind of empirical data about how a player is performing over the different quarters and stuff. And this has never been achievable before. So we're really excited about this technology. So a few minutes left. What's coming up? What's in the near future for us? 5G is big. We are working on 2 big 5G experiences right now for different kind of telco partners. Of course, it brings bandwidth, but 5G is not only about bandwidth, it's also about bringing connectivity. So things like in live events, like big festivals or in stadium that is traditionally really bad for connectivity, 5G hopefully will help solve that. And again, these are places where we know users have their phone out constantly. So again, how do we deliver content into that arena? 5G also opens up connectivity to AI. So with 5G, you can now do a lot of stuff on the cloud. So things like cloud-based rendering, you could be doing things where if you imagine kind of natural language processing, so or AI for characters, things that take a lot more processing that can be done on the phone itself. You can now get that pushed out to the cloud and returned fast enough to still have an experience. Volumetric video is really interesting. Again, kind of enabled by 5G because the file sizes are so huge. But with 5G, they are a lot. Maybe you can stream them. At least you can kind of download them faster. But that opens up a lot of, especially for brands and for consumers, access to their favorite athletes, access to their favorite athletes or actors or characters. That's something that you couldn't really do before. I mean, we could 3D model certain characters, but like actual athletes and stuff, it's much more engaging when you see the person as they are. Again, live telemetry, NHL is just one example of that. Every sport out there, of course, is kind of delivering their own type of telemetry, and now being able to access that as you're watching the live event kind of changes the sport consumption experience as well. Visual search, so this is not pure AR, but we feel it is building that similar behavior. Visual search is if I take a look at the water bottle on this counter, the device knows what it is. It might just return buy another water bottle for $1 or whatever. But it's building that user behavior where they're getting used to looking at their camera, looking at physical stuff around them, and augmenting that. Indoor localization. So the idea of instead of once you have a scanned and indoor space, I can use the entire space as a kind of marker for the AR, and not signage and not individual product. That's going to be big. Audio AR we think is really, really exciting. And one big reason for that is that it has solved a big content issue. As I was saying before, if I have AR see-through glasses and there's nothing in visual AR for me to look at in that room, those pair of glasses are completely useless. With audio AR, they already have a killer app. It already ties into your music. There's already a bed of content that makes that product useful all the time, and then you insert AR experiences on top of that. And Real, I think, is the new headset is going to be an interesting foray into kind of consumer head-mounted because it's stylish, it's lightweight. Again, they still have to face the other content challenges and UX challenges, but I feel at least the form factor is getting closer. And then HoloLens on the enterprise side. I mean, that is a super powerful tool. It'd be really interesting in the next year to see what can be done with it and how fast the adoption happens. I have 30 seconds for questions. Anybody have a question out there? There's a couple of mics, but you can just yell it out as well. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the insights into your project. My question is about shared experience, collaboration experience in sense of multiplayer experiences. I mean, a lot of projects you talked about were more like single user experiences, and also your outlook into the future has no collaboration in it. So my question is, what's your point on that?
Yes, On the enterprise side, we're doing kind of a lot of collaborative work. So things like annotation and commenting and review can be done collaboratively. On the consumer side, for Mattel, we did a big XR game where it was a 3D object reco of a track, and you're doing multiplayer, both seeing the same AR content, both affecting each other's digital play. The challenge on the consumer side is like, on the enterprise side, you know what the devices are, and you know the reason to connect those people. On the consumer side, there's all these different devices, all the friction of actually getting everyone to connect, and also tying into length of play. So we looked at collaborative gaming for board games. We actually partnered on a project with Weta Workshop out of New Zealand. And what came out of it was that average playtime was 40 minutes, which would just drain any kind of phone that you have, especially if you're running AR on it. So those are some things on the consumer side that you have to be a little bit careful about when it comes to collaborative play. Cool.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I think I am. Any other questions? Thank you so much for spending the time here. I'm available after if you guys have any other questions. And also, one more important thing. We are hiring, so we are definitely looking for more Unity developers. We're actually looking for 2 more right now. If you guys like sunny Los Angeles, please email or look at our website, triggerglobal.com, and let us know. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.